הדובר הבא שלנו הגיע מאיטליה, וקצת אחרי שהוא יסיים לדבר הוא יצטרך לרוץ לשדה התעופה כדי לחזור לשם. כריסטיאן איונה הוא משפטן בינלאומי שמתמחה בשלטון מקומי שיתופי. הוא עובד עם ערים בכל העולם במטרה לפתח תשתית לבניית קהילה וניהול טוב יותר של המרחב הציבורי. בשנה האחרונה הוא מוביל תוכנית אסטרטגית עירונית בבולוניה, מעורר קינה, המתבססת על כלכלה שיתופית והתחדשות של החברה והשטחים העירוניים המשותפים. כותרת ההרצאה שלו בהתאם היא The Co-City. מיסטר איונה, פליז.
שלום. תודה רבה. תודה רבה to Tami, Ella, Imbar, and Galit, who have been treating us, Neil and I, as very special guests, and it was 2 days, very intense days that we got to know, and we got to know very much a lot about your country, about your cities, and for me, being an Italian with Jewish Ashkenazi roots, it's always an emotion to be back in Israel. So that's really something that I cherish a lot. So we have been talking about כלכלת שיתוף until now, and we are gonna. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And now we're going to talk about נחלת הכלל. So I think, that the two topics are in some way connected, of course. Otherwise, I won't be here. And I've been, studying and practicing both sharing economy and the commons. And I'm very happy that Neil, during his presentation, showed how the two arguments, the two topics connect to each other. And he was, very like a real professor. He explained what the commons mean. You need a shared resource. You need a community that share these resources, and social practices that, I will add, lead to governance tools, governance devices. So the governance device of the commons, of the urban commons that I was mostly involved in the last 5 years, since 2011, and if you notice, it's the same at the same time as the examples that Neil showed before. 2011, 2012, San Francisco, Seoul. So we need to start asking why. Why all of a sudden this sharing, commons, collaboration, cooperation in the city, and became something that is filling up the pages of the web, and sometimes also the pages of the newspapers. I think there is a reason, and of course, one of the reasons is, and we should not be, you should not be lying about it, is the crisis that happened in 2008, and the crisis in the public financing, which, if I understood well from the beautiful translation that Sagit tried, and donated us in the previous panel. So what I'm saying is that basically the crisis has had a role in this, but is it the only factor? Is it the only element that it's triggering, it's fostering collaboration, commoning, sharing in the city? I guess it's not. And I would say that it's not even the other big factor that we have been talking about, which is the digital factor, the technology. It's not just the crisis, it's not just the technology. I think it's a paradigm shift that is happening in social practices and in the culture of many people, which is basically pushing people to take action and to start behaving not like passive subjects of the market or the state, but become active agents of change. So if you are looking for the actors of change, we need to start looking to the citizens. to the people. So Lefebvre, and we were talking about this, who owns the city, who the city is for. We should start asking this kind of question. The fundamental question is who the city is for, who the city is produced by. The city is produced by the citizens. So that's why I put this picture, which is a picture that with Neil and Sheila Foster, who is my partner in crime. She's the legal scholar that with me is now working in Bologna on the regulation and in many other cities. You know, this is the square where at some point two ladies decided that they wanted to have a bench in this park. It's Piazza Carducci in Bologna. And they knocked on the door of the municipality, of the city, and the city, you know, treated them like aliens. Why do you want to put a bench in a park? You know, this is our job. Why should you do the job that is, you know, the mission of the city? Because we need the benches. We would like to sit in the sun, enjoy the sun in the park. And we want to do it. So they didn't have basically the tools, the legal tools, the regulatory tools, and even the language, which is more important than the rules, as I will show you in a moment. And I won't be very, very long because I really would like to have an exchange and to have a Q&A session as much as possible. So they asked the city to put these benches, and the city start thinking, how should we do this? And you know, you can imagine all the Kafkian episodes that will happen within the city. No, it's not possible. It's against insurance policies. It's against responsibility and accountability. Who are these people? Why should we accept the benches from these two ladies and not from other ladies? Or maybe, I don't know, you know, all sorts of Kafkian questions. So we start a project, basically, and that is not a project of 5 people sitting around the table and designing a regulatory tool. We start an experimentation, which this is another factor that I will stress in a moment. We start an experimentation to understand what the conditions are and what the people of Bologna can collaborate on. So the panel that came, you know, I witnessed it before about, you know, examples that are happening in other cities. You should take them as inspiration, but you should come up with your own solutions. We should come up with something that is rooted in your tradition and your culture, because that's what really the regulation on urban commons told us. So that's why I want to go back to basically the, you know, take-home points. I don't wanna, you know, take up much of your time, but I just wanna, you know, I listed the take-home points that we need to start, we can extract from the regulation that we drafted in Bologna. The first thing is the principle of civic collaboration. I'm afraid to say that I think that civic collaboration is almost in every constitution in the world. It's not something that happened in 2008 or 2011. It's something that, at least for my country, was already in the Italian constitution that was drafted in 1948. And there is even a case law from the Italian Constitutional Court that in the 70s that talks about this idea of citizens taking care of the commons, citizens becoming part of the government, part actually of a public governance scheme. So it's not Obama in 2009 that, you know, issues the Open Government Initiative and talks about the collaboration that you know, came up with the idea of collaboration. Collaboration has always been there. It's, someone in Jerusalem said it's the 3rd time around. It's true. It's the 3rd time around. The cooperation becomes a way to understand a shift in a paradigm that is happening. So we need to start understanding that this is about seizing, harnessing the possibilities, the imagination, the ideas, the talents, the capabilities that the crowd, the communities, the citizens, the people, you name it. You know, the words are different, but they all go back to one simple thing. The knowledge and the possibilities and the solutions are not any longer within huge, big boxes, being them private boxes or public boxes. I'm talking about public institutions, government, or big corporations. They are in the crowd, they're outside, they are distributed. It's not like it was before. So we need to start redesigning institutions, public and private institutions, basing our imagination on this principle. So, and if we talk about the commons in the city, we need to start understanding that commons, as Ostrom would frame it, were a tale of congestion. You know, she talked about the possibility to overcome the tragedy of the commons, which in a conference on urban sustainability, I think it's crucial, it's critical. Congestion is when you have a resource that is used by too many users that lead to the destruction of the resource because of overconsumption of the resource. What is today true, though, is that congestion could also become a form of reproducing the resource if we reframe it as agglomeration. If we agglomerate people, if we create density, and we make them collaborate. So it is true that congestion, if you think about, you know, we spoke about Uber and the roads, the urban roads, and that's where I started from. You know, the tragedy of urban roads, it's because too many people use the roads with their own private cars. So if you start sharing cars, it's just the first layer of overcoming the tragedy. If you start making people collaborate and go from car sharing to carpooling, maybe you reduce much better traffic congestion. So you reduce, and this is a big problem, I know, in Israel, you reduce the number of cars that are occupying the commons, which is the urban roads, the urban infrastructure. Okay? So we need to start reconceiving congestion. We need to start using these new glasses of agglomeration, because if you think about also in another way, if you think about the so-called cultural and constructed commons, you can understand that we need to create congestion. If you think about open source, if you think about, you know, Wikipedia, which is an agglomeration of knowledge, and so you need pools of people that work together and agglomerate. In some way, you need to produce congestion. So the other take-home point that we got is that the regulation is not just a set of rules. It's more the idea of producing social norms. It's the idea that in the future, you know, councils, as legislative assemblies, are going to be less and less important. It's going to be more important to produce in a city where people collaborate and share resources, to have behaviors that in some way can foster collaboration and can foster the possibility for people to you know, create new ways of living together, working together, growing together. So it's not just about rules, it's more about norms. It's about changing lifestyles. It's about changing the mindset, as Tammy was saying before. The other thing is about the tools that we are using. The regulation coined this legal tool, which is the Pact of Collaboration. And we didn't want to call it a contract or an administrative act. We called it pact because we wanted to say that it's an agreement between two different sovereignty and power holders, which is the government through representative democracy schemes, circuits, and the community and the people. So it's two sovereign entities that come together and decide to share power, because this is what, you know, was also important, and it is important to understand. It's about changing the way democracy has been designed so far. So the other lesson that we learn is about not just trying to scale up, but it's also about scale down. So go as much as possible closer to the citizens, closer to the community, creating not just strategic plans, metropolitan strategic plans, but also street level, block level, street level, block level institutions, diversified institutions that build on the real identity of the neighborhoods, of the local communities, which can be different from, not even from one city to another, but even from one neighborhood to the other neighborhood. So we need to understand the importance of putting aside the idea of having one uniform form of government or governance. So the other thing is that, of course, this model of democracy and governance, it's no longer about commanding and controlling. Command and control was the tool that the Leviathan state was designed to use. The idea to treat the citizens and the community as a passive subject that need to be, need police powers, need the monopoly of force to avoid the Hobbesian, homo homini lupus, the idea that every man is a wolf to the other man, that could be a violent, aggressive man. So the idea is that from commanding public, and that's another fundamental question, how we redesign government in order to become an agent of governance, of urban governance in particular. So the most important thing is understanding that city governments should, in some way, not be afraid of distributing power, of giving away some of their prerogatives, and start working no longer on behalf of the communities, but with the communities. This means that public managers in the future will need to be more co-designers rather than usual bureaucrats, and politicians need to be more policy makers, where makers, the idea of making the city together is more important than making the policy together. So co-designers and policy makers rather than bureaucrats and politicians. And so I will leave you on this note. So the fundamental question is, who are we doing this for? Are we doing this just for a very tiny niche of people who love digital stuff, who are very, are nerds about sharing economy and sharing apps that are spreading all over the world? Or are we doing this because we believe in the commons? No. The question of, are we doing this for some or are we doing this for all, it's the fundamental question. So we need to start giving answers to things like, how do we reconceive public housing? How do we reconceive social inclusion? How do we fight urban poverty through the lenses of sharing economy and the commons? Thank you. No. You always learn something. That's. No, but I'm more familiar with all those scholars who have been advocating the idea that you can reconstruct social order without law. Meaning, which doesn't mean that it's not without some form of legal, device. It means that we really need to start thinking how we, instead of having institutions that lead, having institutions that in some way inspire people to behave in a way that is coherent with the greater good. That's the point. Until now, we have had assemblies, councils that are thought to be, a place where the best people in town or the best people in a country and are supposed to meet and come up with the better ideas for the community. So what I'm saying is that, what I'm witnessing actually, is that more and more and if I can show you one picture quickly, is that this was, the presentation. And Gali, this is the final version. So more and more, this is the mayor of Bologna, and that's the deputy mayor. So more and more, they are not, just going to the council. They are organizing, and they spent at least 12 days in the last year, and it's just, 1 day per month. It's okay, but it's, 1 day more than before, with people in the city designing solutions. So by doing this, you come up with rules or norms or governance devices that are self-implementing because they are designed by. So I don't think it's any longer true that we need to talk about top-down or bottom-up. It's about circularity. It's about horizontal schemes of governance. So we should understand that this is a way of redistributing power and solving the asymmetries in the distribution of power, because at the end of the day, if you run commons, sharing, cooperation, whatever you want to name it, projects, and at the end of the day, you cannot say that after the project you redistributed some power beyond resources, you cannot say that there was a successful commons sharing project, because that's what commons is about. I mean, this is the issue. In fact, some of the Kafkian questions were, okay, we ask this, we let these two ladies put the bench in this park. What if they buy a bench that it's not conform to the technical standards? What if they choose an aesthetic a bench that aesthetically it's not pleasant for other citizens? So that's why we started thinking, how do we reconceive also the decision-making process? No, because community is not one, as you said, it's diverse. So that's why you see on the wall that there is a map of, that's a map not of the city, it's a map of not even a neighborhood, it's a map of some blocks within a neighborhood. And if you don't see it very clearly, but you see that there is a pink concentration. There was all the citizens coming and addressing the same issue, the same problem. So what we did after they signaled the same problem is, okay, let's sit down and talk about it. And what we come up with was solutions and just an idea on which we could start co-designing. So in many of these cases, we are now, what is happening in Bologna is that a team of what we call it the Office of Civic Imagination, which is a polytechnic of the commons. So many people with different technical backgrounds, from legal to service design or communication or architecture or even social psychology are working together to help all these communities, all these diverse communities work together and find a common solution, because of course they come with different ideas about. So it's how you reconceive basically administrative procedures.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.